Hello there, and welcome to my reaction to Israel Unbiased History by Devahati. Do I remember the name correctly? Alright. So I guess he had a poll like what should he do uh, after Rome or like after Byzantium. Either way, it seems like he chose more history. And I think that's a good idea. I just kind of wonder how it's gonna go. And what is it like before I was doing like reactions one after another and like it made sense. There was a continuation, and then now it's this. Like I have zero expectations and zero idea what is it about. So, well, except for the title. Uh, but anyway, it's gonna be a weird thing to react to this, to watch this right after I watched a video on Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, which is like batshit insane, and now I'm gonna go to this, which is also batshit insane, but in a very different way. Probably. I'm just guessing here from just older Devakati videos. Anyway, if you want to help out the channel, check the links in the description below. And if you don't want to do anything there, like, comment, subscribe. It also helps. Let's begin.
Israel, ancestral land. Israel,
Okay.
ancestral land of the Jewish people. Few there tell its great history. Many believe it to be a long,
Didn't expect
complex,
Bloodborne.
highly controversial story. However, you've been lied to. Israel's history is simple, objective, and, as the Torah teaches us, best told through the Fallout experience. So, much like inspecting a terrorist outpost after being bombed by the Israeli Air Force, by the time we're done, you'll quickly realize that Israel did nothing wrong. Thousands of years ago, the Jewish people were chosen by God and promised.
If I'm not mistaken, and I easily could be, this is an entirely different editing from the Byzantium series, right? Unless I'm mistaken, I haven't seen his videos in a while, so.
The Holy Land. Whether it was because of their unfathomable IQ, moral purity, or high perseverance matters little. What does matter is that everyone else was jelly as hell, couldn't take the banter, and destroyed the grand Jewish civilization, renaming the Holy Land with the foreign imperialist name of Palestine. Now, all spread out through this fallen, post-apocalyptical world, the Jewish people, resented for their unmatched skills, were only allowed to partake in trading and finances. This was a mistake. More persecutions followed. By the 19th century, thousands of Jews began migrating back home for spiritual reconnection, only to find their ancestral lands occupied by Muslim Arabs. Any good sources will tell you that Arabs have no claim to the land, and Islam is just yet another Torah fanfiction. But with Jewish hatred through the roof. Unfazed by this, average Jew Fyodor Herzl organized the Zionist movement, advocating for a new Jewish state. One dead archduke later, the Brits took over the Holy Land and helped more Jews to migrate back home. The Arab occupiers began to riot. The Brits caved in and limited Jewish immigration, and the Jews protested this action. The new United Nations proposed a god-awful partition plan to divide the Holy Land between Jews and Arabs. The chosen people accepted anyway, and declared independence as the Great State of Israel, a secular democracy where all would be free to prosper, Jew, Muslim, and all others alike, while the Arabs declared war. The 1948 invasion of Israel by the Arab League ended exactly as you would expect. Arab humiliation. 700,000 Palestinians were made refugees by the invading Arab armies. But in Palestinian folklore, they blamed the Jews and called this event the Nakba, the catastrophe. The young officers, Ariel Sharon and Moshe Dayan, had a good time. As Israel thrived in a sea of third world misery, its leaders were able to focus on what would become its main export, Mossad PSYOPs. Take a long evening to look at Israel's successful assassinations list to get what Mossad is all about. Be you the architect of the Holocaust hiding in Argentina or Moroccan, you are not safe. Bitter at defeat and failing to take the Jewish banter, the Arab League formed the Palestinian Liberation Organization to terrorize Israel, an effort they didn't lack. Yasser Arafat took it over and became terrorist-in-chief. This combined with Egypt and 3 other Arab nations all mobilizing against Israel again in 1967, the Jews could predict what would follow from a Gaza Strip away. Psyoping the Arabs into complacency, nuking their entire air force and letting generals like Sharon and Dayan take over the Sinai Peninsula Peninsula, West Bank, and Golan Heights, all in 6 days. The tears collected from captured Arabs that week sustained the Israeli salt market to this day. But crying wasn't enough to stop the enemies of Zion. 6 years later, the Arabs invaded Israel again in the holy Jewish day of Yom Kippur. Despite such treachery, Sharon halted their advance, but at great cost. On that war, Israel's KD
So
fell
much fallout, I
just
did not
7-1.
expect this.
The Holy Land secured, many Jews migrated to the reconquered lands of their ancestors, building new Jewish communities in the West Bank, the first settlements. Illegal.
So okay, he did a post like after the sometime after the last video of his came out, like the stream. He did a post asking what content he should do. Like some options were to keep doing historical content just on different topics, not just like, well, different to Byzantium and like to Rome. And one of them also was a game review. So I see he decided to do both. I mean, this is not a review, but it's a lot of game. I don't know, it's weird.
Against
very
international
unexpected.
law? What law? If advocating for us getting ethnically cleansed from the area is your thing, then I see you haven't been paying attention to the score. Contrary to popular and UN belief, Israel has always led the pursuit to long-term peace. Proof being Israel's return of the Sinai Peninsula to Egypt, just asking in return for them to stop being so cringe. The Egyptian leader got murdered for it, and a decade later the Lebanese became very cringe. I'm not gonna bother explaining the Lebanese civil war to you. Imagine spending 30 years fighting multiple militias under foreign occupation just for at the end your national army still only be the second biggest military force in your country. Enter Hezbollah. You see, Iran is more than just a theocratic hellhole, it's also a connoisseur of paid shilling. While Lebanon was on fire, it propped up a Shia militia group called Hezbollah to fight against the Israeli peacekeeping forces entering South Lebanon. And despite being solely funded by the worthless monopoly money known as Iranian rials, the Lebanese never kicked them out. Surrounded by terrorists in either hostile or incompetent states, Israel was nevertheless thriving, until the First Intifada. Ask an anti-Zionist influencer what the First Intifada was, and he'll demand your attention for an entire week. Ask an Intifada partaking terrorist instead, and he'll be very straightforward. A huge anti-Israeli revolt broke out, rocks were thrown, civilians were killed, excuses were given, and the results were predictable.
And damn, it makes
now
me want to
remember,
play
Egypt exists, and it's ruled by
Fallout
idiots. Thanks to that,
2.
they allowed a splinter faction of their theocratic party to infiltrate Gaza, renaming themselves as Hamas. Be it the French or Russian Revolution, World War I, capitalism or communism, Hamas will tell you the Jews were behind it all, call for jihad with no peace as an option while proclaiming themselves to be a humanist movement. Their whole ideology can be summarized as the average Malaysian basket-weaving forum post. But not even their constant tunnel building could stop Israel's quest for peace. In 1993, Israeli Prime Minister Rabin and Arafat, under the auspices of Bill Clinton, signed the Oslo Accords, giving the PLO recognition and tons of self-governance, just asking them to stop being terrorists in return. After a little trolling, later came Prime Minister Barak to finish the deal. Offering 90% of the West Bank, many settlements to be destroyed, East Jerusalem, allowing many 1948 refugees to return, it was everything Palestinians could practically hope for. Arafat, with such a great offer for a Palestinian state at hand, he launched the Second Intifada. In the midst of such chaos came Ariel Sharon again, getting elected Prime Minister. After securing the Palestinian cities whose self-governance was exploited to host terror attacks, imagine that, Sharon ordered built the only thing that could allow for peaceful coexistence with Palestinians. Enter the wall. The Israeli West Bank barrier was built all across the West Bank's borders, including in many settlements deep into the West Bank for added security. Illegal land grab? Segregation? Apartheid state? Sounds like I just found a volunteer for a new Mossad experiment. Think of the Oslo Accord status quo like a walled-off kindergarten. Inside, the Palestinians are able to express their youthful excesses without bothering the grown-ups. And whenever things get too rowdy, the adults are ready to storm in and ensure the peace. Despite the Second Intifada being over, Arafat dying and Mr. Abbas succeeding him to power, Sharon's big Jewish heart still yearned for long-term peace. As a show of goodwill, he pulled all Israeli troops and settlements out of Gaza. And the Palestinians followed this up by using their newfound self-governance by voting for Hamas. Things then got too rowdy. The PLO kicked Hamas from the West Bank and kept an illegal hold on power, and Hamas bombed the PLO out of Gaza. The Gaza Strip was blockaded, unemployment rose to 50%, living standards crashed, and most money sent to Gaza was turned into rockets. So betrayed was Ariel Sharon, he fell into a permanent coma until his death. Some Jews are too good for this cruel world. Getting attacked, bombing terrorists, making truces, and getting refused long-term peace. Such became Israel's modern predicament. As for Hamas, ironically, they didn't like getting blown up, and so began putting their military assets beside schools, hospitals, and civilian areas to discourage Israeli bombardment. But the noble Israelis came up with a counter-strategy: roof knocking. Basically, if you're a Palestinian civilian hosting terrorists or their equipment in your house, the first bomb means get out. The phone call means get out now, and the second bomb means your fault. But even if all else fails, Israel can always rely on the Iron Dome system, a network of targeted missile launchers that intercept 90% of Hamas's rockets. And the best part? America pays for it all. Life in modern Israel is, in short, a glorious one, best represented by the settlement's vault dweller-like experience. You enjoy your days among the wonders and glories of first world living standards, filled with forced conscription, great food, and abundant third world labor in the holy land of your ancestors, all surrounded by thick, massively reinforced walls. And should you make the mistake of venturing into the lawless lands beyond, you'll be quickly reminded of why that wall was built in the first place. Despite Israel's best efforts, a Palestinian state still doesn't exist. The conflict rages on, and once more Jews must endure being hated just for being that good at everything they do. If after watching this you feel compelled to subscribe to certain channels and to defend Israel's honor against the unending hordes of Twitter lefties, then don't be too bothered by the beeping sound coming from inside your head. That just means the experiment worked. Gotta go now. I have been speaking for over 10 minutes and not once shilled an advertised product. I have to leave this place before the Grand Priest finds out and executes me for incompetence. I would thank the many members of the Merchant Guild for funding these videos and being truly wonderful, but a far greater Jew long trademarked that phrase. God bless the Jewish people.
I really was getting Seth Zintech vibes from this video. I don't know why. A bit of similar style. I don't know. I think my brain is melting because I streamed for 5 hours. Then, right before this video, I recorded a reaction. And now this. So I'm very hungry. And my brain is no good. And I understood half of this, maybe, because of that. And I'm not gonna subscribe to Devakti's channel because I already am for a long time, including notifications. As you should be, if you enjoy the content. If not, then it's okay. But yeah, I did know about like endless war between Israeli and Palestine. I forgot how to pronounce it in English. I knew about the conflict, like multiple wars and stuff like that. I just didn't know that neither the reason behind them, neither what sides like aggravates, which side aggravates which side. Let's say it that way. So it's very interesting to see that Jewish people always just wanted peace and get fucked over every time. It's incredible. It's incredibly unfair. But anyway, thank you, anybody who watched this. I appreciate it a lot and I hope to see you next time. Goodbye. Have a great life, because one of us has to.